no one cares. Just succeed. My perspective has always been it's always my fault, and no one cares who I got help from. They only care if I failed or succeeded. Period. I truly think the most underrated money-making habit is the willingness to be an idiot and look stupid, because that's the surest way to understand that you're failing and not to be worrying about avoiding failing. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. The only thing that will make sense is whether or not you succeeded or not. All right. I had this conversation with a good friend of mine about a business he had worked on a long time ago. And in the end, it didn't work out. But through that whole stretch, he never once reached out to me and asked me why. And his reaction is really what sparked this video. And that happened like literally the other night. And I'm like, you know what I do for a living? Why wouldn't you ever ask me for help? It really was like, it threw me back because it was really unique. And I was thinking maybe this might help you if you're looking for help. Let's talk about this. Hey, I'm Matt Coffy. I built and scaled multiple businesses in my life. In fact, the last one I did was a multi-million-dollar digital agency. And I've worked with over 1,000 entrepreneurs. I know it sounds crazy, but it's been a long time. I've been doing this for 15 years. I've worked with agency owners, small businesses, and all sorts of leaders over the past decade and a half. Now, what I'm about to share you comes from the trenches, not from theory. It's the stuff no one really tells you about. And that's the key. It's what it takes to succeed, not to just survive. It's when you're building something that matters, right? Now, for you people who may not know me, and I'm sure that if this is the first time you're watching me, I'm the founder of Profit Engine. Profit Engines is a digital agency, marketing agency that I've created after selling my last agency. Now, I've helped a lot of businesses grow and put revenue on the table through scalable systems, obviously. And these are the things that really have breakthroughs and bottlenecks that most people are getting stuck with today. So it's really building systems. Now, I've been a fractional CMO for a couple of companies. I've been a speaker, a podcast. I'm a musician who has, obviously, you can see behind me all these rock paraphernalia and amps, and I play it on national stages with, warming up for national acts. But today, this story is really interesting. It's a heartwarming story because it really gets to the point of why when people hit a ceiling, and in the very end, I really want to give you some sort of a framework that helped me navigate some of the things that was really hurting me in my career. Now, let me tell you, this has been a difficult year for me as well because I'm starting over. So let's get into this. This conversation is about something that hits a lot of people. And I think it holds them back from their potential of having success. I'll share this at some deeper reasons why at the very end. Again, the framework I'm going to do is help me and a lot this year, which has been a really tough one for me because it's starting over, and maybe it'll help you too. And the idea here is no one cares, just succeed, because you really, until you succeed, really, effort just goes unnoticed. You've got to get used to that. That's how the world works. Now think about this. I remember asking him, hey, you mind if I ask you just a piece of just a little bit of content here? And he's like, yeah, sure. What about? I said, from our conversation, you said something, if I'm going to fail, I want it to be on me. And he said, what about that? What stood out? And he said, honestly, I need to go through that and realize I can't do it alone. Otherwise, it'd be too easy to blame someone else. So I pushed back and I said, how could you blame someone else? And he said, well, saying things like I failed because I followed somebody else's system. It didn't hold up. I wrecked my business. I had to move from North Carolina. It didn't, blah, blah, blah. Mental cop-ups, on and on and on. Pointing. Excuse, saying, I'm lucky. You're lucky. You're lucky. You know how to do it. And I'm like, I hate to say it, but I've seen this over and again. And it was all coming from him. And I said, fault's funny because really it doesn't matter. No one ever thinks, hey, that worked out really well for him. Or I wonder whose fault it was. Or I think about the fault that things go badly. We don't think fault in the positive sense. I brought that up to him and he said, I've come to really understand that I need better systems, better leverage, better people around me to make the next chapter happen. And I have to stop hiding. And I'm thinking through this and I realize no one asks whose fault it is when things work, right? The truth is, 2 or 3 years from now, when you think about, let's say, I don't know, a Super Bowl quarterback breaks records and is sitting around saying, "Hey, you know that guy got really lucky from that ref call, or the ball was blown up too much or too little." No one remembers how they succeeded or who succeeded. And so I think it's really interesting to follow this because this friend of mine was in the digital agency space. And when I reached out, I asked him, "Why didn't you ask me for help?" And his answer was he failed. He wanted it just to be on him alone. And he said, "If I can't make it, then I can't make it. It's not worth it." And I said, "Holy crap. Like, what do you mean?" Because for anyone out there who shares that mindset, I think you're doing yourself a huge disservice. My perspective has always been it's always my fault, and no one cares who I got help from. They only care if I failed or succeeded. Period. End of story. And that's why my background and everything that I do is about two simple words: just succeed. That's it. Just succeed. It doesn't matter how you get there. Just make it happen. Honestly, I play these huge gigs all over the world. Oh, all over the world. Well, my New Jersey, New York world. No one cares how I got there. They just know that we're playing on these big stages. Because when I think about it, no one cares. Actually, no one's going to ask how we got there. How many people did it take to get you there before you actually got on stage? Same thing with business. They're only going to know if you failed or you succeeded. And if I think about living otherwise, it's just ridiculous because under all things, this comes down to just ego. And it's the simple ability to say, "Hey, please help me. I need help." And it blew my mind that this person wouldn't come and ask me for help because their ego, they tried to protect their ego because they didn't want their ego to be failed and saw as fragile. Now, I think that's the spot where a lot of beginners like me once upon a time gotten stuck. They're stuck in their own pride. They don't reach out for help. They don't consume content. They're not smart enough to make decisions. And this is especially common for people who like identify themselves as smart. That's because that's where we have humility, right? So it's such a critical piece of making progress. You have to be able to say, "I have no idea what I'm doing. I need help. Someone get me out of here. I'm stuck." You got to be able to say, "I failed," or you couldn't figure it out. And if you can't do it, probably because you're trying to maintain some kind of stupid image, some aura for people around. Say, "Oh yeah, he's a smart. Oh, he's always good. He always lands on his feet." Oh boy, did that not work out. So someone who is really good maybe at something in school or something, and they just basically said, "You know what? I don't need any help." But imagine if you just said, "Can someone help me?" But if you're used to being so smart and everybody looking at you, you'd have to actually humble yourself. The work still has to get done. The learning still needs to happen. But the real question is, what mindset, what mental situation do I need to get into to learn faster? And humility is the key here. And that's part of the mix. It's being humble enough to ask. And boy, if I learned this lesson. If you can learn anything and you're willing to look like an idiot in front of people long enough, I truly think the most underrated money-making habit is the willingness to be an idiot and look stupid, because that's the surest way to understand that you're failing and not to be worrying about avoiding failing. Because here's the interesting thing. All risk is guaranteed in these businesses. There's a huge misconception about how life works. People try to avoid risk, but the truth is all the good stuff happens on the other side of risk, right? The idea of putting yourself out there, like myself, getting on huge stages, playing in bands and being in front of thousands or lots of people, hundreds, and worrying about being rejected is okay. See, if you want to love rejection, you're going to be okay. If you want real intimacy in your life, you want real vulnerability, anywhere there is suffering, there is joy on the other side. There's a success that goes on the other side. And I think about this all the time, whether it's in business or in music, because The point is, the things we want most in life are double-edged. We want one side without the other. We want sunny days and no rain, and we just want everything to be all clear and happy and sunshine, but it's really just like weather. It's rainy, it's sunny, it's cold, it's wet, it's nice. It doesn't matter. The only way that you never know is by never stepping outside. But if you never step outside, you miss the whole point of living. When it comes to risk, we're all afraid. It doesn't matter. You risk nothing, you become nothing. You are nothing because nothing ventured, nothing gained. Now, all these little idiosyncrasies in life are very simple. Often things that we think we have to lose really aren't material at all. That actually one of the big early misconceptions is people say you've got nothing to lose when you're starting out. But everyone has something to lose. And most of it's right up here in your head. And that's what makes it so hard. And I think this is the truth, because what really you have to lose is your social standing and the image of being smart among your friends, being the successful one in your inner circle, that you could do it on your own. Or maybe you're the one in your family who maybe went to college, and that the whole thing was that you had to be somewhat of a gigantic brain that carefully built your image that might just shatter. Now, if your whole identity is tied up into that, you're going to have a problem. So why don't we invest in our identity elsewhere? We've got to put our identity in our behaviors and think about us. If you think about identity and ask yourself, do I have an anti-fragile identity? One that can handle all these external changes? Because if I bring this up, it's been super hard for me. Getting kicked in the face and losing everything, right? It happens. It makes you ask, who am I really? Where does my identity live? And has this been a monster focus for me? Because honestly, this has actually been the hardest year I've ever had, because I've actually had to start all over from scratch. I sold a business and I've got nothing. I start from goose egg. I have no identity anymore. I'm not making I don't have a multi-million-dollar business anymore. I have a new business that I'm starting. But I keep asking myself, what is it that makes my identity? What is it? Is it something that I am? Is it something that I do? And I thought, well, maybe if you really dig in, it's hard to describe. To me, just doing is being an identity. So if doing is being, then I am what I am. I do, right? Not what people think, right? And I'm not worried about what people think. That means when circumstances turn bad, what do? Well, that's who I am. See, by shifting your perspective, your identity becomes rooted in the actions you control. Your identity becomes your control. And with that takes the new highs and lows of chasing this external validation. I think it lets you take these, well, I would say bigger risks, because we all need to take bigger risks. Here's an example. When I started my digital agency business, I joined several masterminds for agency owners before I even owned a real agency. I was in a huge group with paying a lot of money per month, right? And it sounds ridiculous. I hadn't even really built the company out. I paid the money to be around other agency owners, but I really didn't even own an agency. I had just started. I literally had just a couple of people on my team and had a couple of accounts. But I got to learn what was the best offers, what were the best tools, what were the best things, people who had years of experience, right? And basically that got me faster and faster and got me ahead. But for some reason, this seems foreign to some people. Why wouldn't you ask for help? The only thing I can think of is that it's ego. And this is exactly what happened to my friend. His ego stopped him from reaching out and asking for help. He only asked for help when it was too late. He had actually gone through his problems and said, oh, I was having such challenges, and I had this problem, and I was throwing up behind the building, and I couldn't even understand. I'm like, dude, why didn't you ask me? I would have helped you. But anyways, I want to be this success story that for every mentor, every advisor, every person I've worked with, that it's really been the secret. I do what they say, exactly what they tell me to do. And I've used to fight them, and now I don't. And I fundamentally believe, I think anyone can understand that I can learn something from everyone around me, and especially if they're in front of me. Everyone is better at something, some little thing. I can learn something from anybody. And I've never been judgmental, never thinking that I'm better than anybody, never thinking I can find a better way. I'm always at trying to be super smart. And you'll notice that all the really wealthy people just listen. They don't engage in behavior that doesn't like push people away. They know there's an ROI in some little thing that someone will tell. Now, if you think about this, at the end of the day, who benefits most? The person who asks, I don't know anything about it. I don't know anything about X, Y, and Z. Tell me about it. Or they just walk away, right? I don't know how to fix a car. Show me what else. What should I be doing? What can I learn? One of my favorite mindsets around hardship comes from basically whatever I learn from any hardship, meaning that there's always a lesson. I just love that idea. There's always a lesson in the universe on any challenge that comes after me. I've known because I've been banged around so hard this year trying to build this business. And I learn a lesson every single day because by 2025, this by far has been the hardest year over the last 10 years because I'm literally going in having to remind myself that there are good years and bad years, but there's always good things to come. And what lessons do I need to learn? What is going to reshape me? And what have I really interested to do in starting to do breakthroughs? And I'm starting to get breakthroughs. I'm starting to change my behavior. But here's another framework that helped. When something bad really happens, most of the suffering is just in your head. And this was the big lesson I learned from my friend. He said he went through years and years and years of suffering. I'm like, but dude, you're here now. You're okay. Like you didn't die. And he's like, I don't understand how you could be so lucky and never go through any suffering. I'm like, everybody goes through suffering. It just depends on how much you want to focus on it. So let's say you put $100,000 in the bank, and let's say you'll lose 10,000 of it, right? And does it change anything? Do you drive a less cool car? Do you not eat as well? Do you make different types of coffee for your breakfast? No, it really doesn't matter. Very, very few things happen in life that change you that dramatically. Now, we can choose to feel terrible, right? We can always choose that way, or the stock market goes down. You can choose to feel, but it's key here. And this is the framework. Your key word is choice. You could just easily say, I don't really care because nothing about my life is really going to change. Like up, down, sideways, it's all the same, right? This is what most people go through. If you could just use the framework, does it change my day? Does it change my life? Am I going to get divorced? Am I going to lose my house? Most things, I mean, really, 99% of things absolutely do nothing. It's just voluntary suffering we sign up for in our brain. And so back to this risk. So if you remember that you ask for help and you expect anyone to invest in you more than you invest in yourself, in the end of the day, if you only remember to just succeed. For me, I always tell myself, progress beats pride by a long shot. And the only thing about pride is that I care about my own pride of being proud of myself. Because the truth is, most people in life today won't be there for the rest of your life. Really, they're going to die. People are dying all around us, and it's unfortunate. So why would you let someone else's opinion, even for the few seconds of precious time you have on this earth, make you feel different, make you feel terribly, make you feel bad, and allow this to seep into your brain? But all this social media, boy, it makes people fall into that trap. So what frameworks do we use? So I remind myself, those who succeed shape their story. And here's the cool part. When you succeed, you get to write your own story again, right? I've written one story where I've succeeded and sold a multi-million-dollar company, but now I'm starting over. It's like, oh my gosh, because here's the wild part. My life only exists in my brain, right? Memory, if you study it, is incredibly just like fading. It's unreliable. Can you remember what you did last week? Can you remember what you did yesterday? Right? So no one really remembers anything. Our memories are just often these feelings. And I thought about this most of the time. I don't remember the suffering. I was sick all last month. I literally was sick for a month. I was kicking things because I was so sick. Do I remember it? Do I remember the parts and pieces? Really, if you think about it, you'll never remember most of this. Like I'm talking to you. And that's oddly comforting in a way because most of the time when you're suffering and we look back, it just goes to a blip on a radar screen, right? It made, as I said, I got sick for a week, a month. And then it was like, holy crap, I'm back to normal. Like I don't remember the suffering because those few moments that happen, it just disappears. I can barely remember it. So think about these moments because we don't remember most of our life. It just fades into oblivion. All we really have are the moments to choose to keep. Now, when something's good, I always remind myself, and this is cool, of a framework. When something's really good, try and make a mental note so that you're remembering at least the good things, not the bad things. Maybe something like this rough patch I'm having in 2025, I'll look back and go, well, it was just kind of a blip on the radar screen. I don't remember it. But I started asking for help. I started getting some coaches. I started getting people around me to help me get out of the lock that I was in. And here I go. Here goes the ascension. I can see it. I can make 2026, 2027 all amazing. And here's the thing. Sometimes people who struggle most to ask for help are the ones we've already seen who've tasted success. Maybe in the early days when everything was fine and all the status was there and the houses and the cars and it was all cool, right? And then you see yourself less than because you can't make back what you had. For me, I'm still always willing to pay the time or the money or the people to get my thing in order, my process of getting rewarded for the determination of getting success and not worrying about whether I do it or if I have a coach to help me do it or whatever. And the truth is, determination looks like this long chain of failures until you get it to work. See, you get rewarded for enduring through all these failures more than you do for getting to be clever. And if you are clever enough to get away from them, because the suffering is always guaranteed if you want to. The part is that you're not guaranteed to stick with it. So, what I would really say is that if you can stick with it and you're willing to take risk and you're willing to remember the good parts, forget about the bad parts, you will be rewarded. Now, you will fail. That is true. And in the long run, the only thing that people will remember, just like this thing behind me, is where did you play? What gigs did you do? Who did you warm up for? What businesses did you make? And where did you succeed in selling businesses and making profit and all the things that, that happened? They're not going to know who helped, who did it, who was the process, when was the things that failed, what was that, no one will remember that. The only thing that will make sense is whether or not you succeeded or not. So think about this as you go through a framework for your day to day. Find some help if you need help. Don't be afraid to ask and just succeed.